This is Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments with Shelby Jo Long, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet, hear their stories, and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Shelby Jo Long.
Hi, everyone. Shelby Jo Long here. I'm CEO of Rogue Publishing and also CEO of Business Dynamics. Today on the podcast, I have the opportunity to talk about what I do to contribute to the publishing industry. But then also we have Michelle White here, who's going to give her comments about how important designing our materials are. But first, I'll give kind of a background of what I do. My business is kind of outside of the publishing industry. I don't publish books, and I'm not necessarily a part of that process. I don't edit or design or put all the pieces together like a book coach does. But what I do is my business, and the nature of my business is to help create products or to help create different streams of income out of your ideas. And often people that write books have ideas that they want to get to a larger audience and that they want to create some sort of impact with their book and get their message out and get their story out. And I help people create additional products to help spread their message, to get it out in a different way, to engage people on a different level. And that process of turning your book and your ideas into a course or a program is something that is definitely helps out in today's world, since so much of our ideas are consumed on media. But if we have something visual there to go along with our ideas, that's a way to do that. So what I primarily do is work in the curriculum area and help developing a curriculum out of your ideas and out of your book. In developing a program or a course, it's really taking a lot of ideas and diluting it down into the most important pieces that you want your audience to act upon. It's not diluting it, it's really focusing your ideas into actionable items that walk your audience through a journey. When your authors write about their journey, whether it's their entrepreneurial journey, whether it's their life journey, what kind of journey it is, and then they typically walk their audience through a similar journey. And when you have a program or a course or something actionable that goes along with your book, then you as the author can lead your readers and participants through a similar journey that you did. So just as a piece of reference, that's what I wrote my book about. My book that was released this summer, that Michelle was my designer on the book, and Susie, another Rogue publishing partner, she was the publisher for the book. But it's a way to tell my story, but then also give advice and give actionable pieces to an audience to be able to walk them through a similar process that I did with my entrepreneurial journey. Just as an example, but many people that write in the nonfiction area have a message and have a plan, and they have a journey that they want their audience to walk through. They don't just write the book for it to be read, even though that's a big piece of it, but they write the book to inspire some sort of action with their audience. And we have to think about, we've got, as authors and as participants in business, we have to think about how our stories impact people and what are the different ways that we can impact people. And you can do that through a course or a program. So that's just a basic overview of what I do. But when we put together the curriculum and when we think completely about how the audience could possibly interact with those ideas and make them those items and those ideas more actionable rather than informational, then it transitions the way that we display our information and the way that we present our information, and it being presented in more of an actionable way that ties into our overall message and our overall core idea is very critical. So when we go through the process, I make sure to tie that into the brand. and the brand, which is the encompassing core message and the core principles that you operate under, and the core transformational change that you want to make. And that's what I try to do. That's what I do with my clients in helping develop that curriculum to tie it all together. Now, when I do this, I'm not the person that actually puts the ideas on a page, or the ideas that I'm not the person that actually puts the ideas in imagery and in ideas. I look to an expert in the publishing industry to help me display those ideas in the most effective way for the message that I want to send. And I'm excited to have Michelle White here to talk about how important design is in that whole encompassing idea of having a brand and having your program and having your book all tied together. So, Michelle, can you introduce yourself and talk more about this topic?
Hi, I am Michelle White with MMW Books and also with Rogue Publishing Partners. What I do is design books, covers, interiors, ebooks, and that sort of thing. But along with the books, if you're having programs and things like what Shelby is talking about, you need ancillary printed material, visuals for websites, for your classes, your programs. And that's where the designer can come in and help you with that. You kind of want it all to tie together. So like I do if you have a book and there's a certain look, whether you use colors or your logo, if you have a certain style that you use, you want to continue that throughout all of your materials so that they fit together as one piece and so that they're recognizable as your brand. So if somebody knows that they've taken one of your courses and they might, a year later see something else online, or, even a month later or whatever, they recognize, oh yeah, I remember that, that course, because it's recognizable. That visual recognition is extremely important in your branding. So it's all cohesive. And in addition to that, for your programs or courses, you need everything to be visually organized very well, because you have to be able to, your user has to follow through step by step. They have to be able to pick out what's the most important thing. Like, think of looking at a textbook. There's like very large print, and I come from a background of textbook design. You'll have very large print on some things. So if somebody wants to skim it, they're looking through the headings or the pull quotes, which are just like little sentences that are pulled out and highlighted in a different color or larger print. All these are ways to make your material more usable and to let the user know what's the most important thing. That's going to be the largest, the thing that draws your eye first. The first thing you see when you look at a web page, an advertisement, a book, anything, it should be the most important point. So there's like an hierarchy of design, and so that's important too. But at the same time, it has to tie together with your overall look to keep everything consistent, and that'll give you a very professional presentation and make people come back for more because they recognize what they've seen before in your materials.
Absolutely, those are such important things to remember. And Michelle, when you and I first met, I'll just tell this story because I really enjoy this story. I asked you to talk about what you do and to talk about how you create these visual images that match what the message of the message that we're trying to send in the book. And for me, that's such a foreign concept. I can organize material. I can adapt things to audiences. I'm all about the curriculum and all about the actionable items and all about putting together the strategy and the plan for that. But when it comes to connecting something visual to it, that's really where it's challenging for me, because I don't think about colors or feel or any of those things. And I remember when you would create an infographic for me for the book that for the I See Your Genius book, I had the ideas, but I had it all in an outline. I didn't know how it actually looked. And so working with a designer like you helped it come to life visually. And that's something that you do, but that's also, it's an art form to do that, to be able to create that. So can you talk a little bit about colors and images and feeling and how that all ties into design?
Sure, of course. When I started design, I'll usually start with somebody's logo, assuming they have one. If they need a logo, then you take a step back even before that. Because that logo, those colors bring up certain feelings. Like you said, they're like blue is calming and like reliable. You see a lot of banks use blue in their colors, earthy tones of greens and browns, usually a very natural look. If you're looking at natural products, say on a label for a supplement or something like that, you're going to find a lot of very earthy colors. Red and bright orange, it's very powerful business colors. Every color invokes a certain feeling, and this is universal across, cultures and, different people in all over the world. I don't know if there's studies on that or something, but it just seems like it's something that everybody recognizes, something soft and pastels kind of feel cozy and warm, where bright feels exciting and, so you have to consider all of these things and how it fits with your material so that it's consistent and creates the feeling that you're going for. It also, as far as photos, a lot of times, with social media, people will post a photo with their message, on their post. You have to also consider the colors in that photo, because you're just getting a photo and let's say it's the right thing. It's a person reading a book, say, if you're advertising your book. But you also want to think about the colors that go with your logo, that create the feeling for the message that you're trying to portray. So everything ties together visually. Everything is connected. You have to look at that. And then there's also fonts that you choose. All of this is something that a designer can put together in a cohesive look.
Absolutely. I think it's critical, especially since what I do is I help adapt messages to audiences, but then the messages might not resonate with the audiences if it's not presented in a way that matches the feeling that you want to have and the idea that you want to put across, or does it match your audience? Might not match your audience. So there's lots of things to think about. And this is why I think it's so important to have a team and to have multiple people that can contribute to that. Particularly in the process of writing a book, I think about Susie, who helped with the book coaching. And then I think about the editors that I worked with, Jennifer, and who had different perspectives on the book and how it was put together. But then working with a designer like you that can make all those images come to life and to really evoke the feeling that you read the book. And so what it feels like and what I want the audience to feel. And to have a team that's working together is really something that can make your book pop, and it can make your book really be something that you're proud of and something that's a sign of you and your business. And just when you put so much work into that, I just ask people to kind of not think outside the box, but think about how can you display those messages in a different way to be able to engage your audience in a different way. And those things are all so critical to think about. That's why I think working with a group like Rogue Publishing is so exciting, because there's so many different experts that are in the pool working with you to work on all of these different things. So we make sure that we cover everything. We can stay in our areas of expertise, yet still provide that comprehensive view of the book. So Michelle, thank you for coming to the podcast today. Is there anything else any last piece of advice that you'd give people about putting together their images or connecting all their ideas to their brand? Is there a last piece of advice you'd give today?
I would say if you're going to keep it to a bare minimum, choose a color palette that hopefully goes with your logo. If you don't have a logo, hire someone to make one for you and stick with those colors throughout, or similar colors at least. If you only got one color in your logo, of course you need more than one, but so you have this palette that you stick with, and it'll give you a starting point of not only colors, but you do it with your fonts too. And then if you use those throughout everything, it keeps it all tied together. And, even if you're creating your own social media posts and you're not paying someone to do every single one of them, which can get costly. If you have a certain color and fonts plan in place that you can draw from, that's going to get you right where you want to be. So everything looks the same and ties together.
Absolutely. And making sure that you know the message that you want to send and the audience that you're speaking to as you are going through that process, those things are so critical. That's the piece of advice that I would give too. Decide those foundational things first, and then you can grow from there. And I think those things are so critical to establish that consistency and that to build that loyal brand that makes that big influence with your book, with your course, with your webinar series, whatever promotional materials you are putting together. That is so important. So Michelle, thanks for coming on the podcast today. Your expertise is so critical when it comes to putting together materials and a book and really having the product that you want as an author. And I look forward to continuing to work with you to be able to bring these books to life. So thanks again for coming, and we'll see you next time on the Rogue Publishing Partners podcast to talk to you about more publishing tips to help make your book, help your book make the biggest impact it can. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to Culture, Communication, and Brand Moments with your host, Shelby Jo Long. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.